In this video, we're going to talk about adjustments and filters in PIXLR. Now, in the previous video, we used some brushes and we created some effects like black and white, or we changed the color only in parts of the image, not in the overall image. Now, what we're going to see now, the adjustments are about the entire image, but we can also change that using selections and masks, and same thing about the effects that we find in the filters. So let me start here from another starting point. So I'm gonna open an image, and this one here will be fine. So let's start with this one. Gonna be full HD, but remember to have extra pixels, because just like anything else, the more pixels you have, the better the effects are gonna look. So let's start here with some automatic adjustments, and the first one is auto adjust. So if you click there, you will see some adjustments. You won't notice sometime, but there is some change here from the previous picture. So if I do Ctrl Z, you can see it slightly changed the darken areas and the brightest areas. Now, we have many tools here to do this in a manual way. So for example, the curves and the levels, so Ctrl M or Ctrl L, these are supposed to help you to balance your image or to do color correction or adjustments. So if I click levels, now the first thing you should notice here when an image is not well balanced is that you have a flat line here. And this is not good. So you can click this and drag it right here, and this will be the first adjustment. So we are working usually when we work with adjustments with the brightest pixels. So let's say the whites or the the really bright colors, and then we have halftones, which are kind in a middle way there, and then we have the shadows or the darker tones. Now with the layers or levels, we can work with all the pixels in the scene if we are in the white circle here, or we can work just with the reds, the greens, and the blues, because when we work in graphic design, raster images, we always have three colors or three channels, which are RGB. When we work for printing, we use another system, which is called CYMK, but in this case, we have RGB. So we can work with blues, and just as you can see here, I can work with the brightest pixels, the darker pixels, and the halftones, increasing or decreasing the level of blue on those pixels, or green or red. So this is a little bit more advanced. Another thing you can do with some of these filters is you can click here and compare the original image with the modified image or the adjusted image. Now, just like anything else, you can do color correction, so you can improve or you can alterate everything in order to be something like psychedelic, something real different from the original. Now I will go back here and open up another image. So let's open up this one here. Okay, and I'm gonna show you another tool, which is the curves. Now curves behaves just like levels, but in this case we work with this line, which is something straight right now, but if we double click, we can insert some of these vertices and we can start to place these above or below that original line, which represent like normality or the standard. So we're still working with red in this case, and the opposite of red is cyan. Now all these colors have an opposite, so if you go the other way, it's gonna show you the opposite color. So this is gonna be like purple, and should be like yellow, yes, for blue. So you can work again with RGB channels, but in this case you work with curves. And again, this works again with the brightest pixels, darker pixels, and midtones. So this left part should be the darker tones, and the right side should be the highlights or brightest tones. And again, just click here and see how the image looked before you apply that layers and curves. Now these are the most advanced actually. All the others are pretty simple. So you can go, for example, auto pop, and it's gonna create some contrast and do some sharpening of the image. And you can use auto black and white. It's gonna turn everything black and white and scale of grays. So you can do that real quick with the auto functions here. And then you can go yourself one by one here. So let's make it something real quick. So you have brightness, contrast. So with the brightness, you're gonna increase the brightness of all the pixels. Contrast is gonna darken the darker areas, and it's gonna brighten up the brighter areas. And then we have the temperature, colder, warmer tint if you want to change radically everything. And again, sometimes these are used to adjust the image, sometimes to alterate hue. So this is gonna give a total different look. Saturation again. So you increase or decrease the intensity of the colors, lightness of the pixels of the scene. And again, you can see I'm creating like something real strange here, which looks cool, kind of a alien planet. So you can see how you can go from reality to something far from reality. And then we have vibrance, again, for the colors, if you want to increase the power of those colors right there. And HDR, this is a simulation of what some cameras can do. You can try to simulate the HDR effect, or well, it's basically working. It's something like an advanced contrast, basically, but you can get more information from the web. Color balance, again, red, green, blue, midtones, shadows, highlights. So it's the same thing we did before, but with another type of parameters, but it's the same thing, essentially. We're always gonna work with shadows and all the other pixels. Monochrome, again, this is for black and white, but you can set up some of these settings. So they're gonna treat the green, the blue, and the red in different ways to give you different black and white effects. And then, well, I'm just going really fast here because this is really simple. Again, highlights, shadows, same thing, exposure, another effect to increase the brightness. And here we get again to curves and levels, and then we have threshold. Now this is going to turn everything like only black and white, not with the scale of gray, kind of a like copy effect, photocopy, or posterize. It's gonna decrease the colors. It's gonna make it look like a poster, and desaturate again for the black and white. Invert if you want to change the color and use the invert, and then we have solarize, and that's it. Now, in addition to adjustments, we also have filters, which are pretty easy to use again, just like social network filters. So you can click on one of these and just apply it, and that's it. You don't need to do anything. Just if you want, you can change the intensity of the filter, and that's it. Nothing difficult. And then we have some like more advanced here, like Sharpen. And remember that we use Sharpen and we use the blur with the brushes. Now the only difference here is that you're applying the effect to all the image, but you can also constrain the effect into a selection. I'm gonna show you this in just a minute. Now we also have some extra blur here and also motion blur. We talked in the previous video about the difference between motion blur and focus and the focus. Now motion blur is due to the movement of the camera or the movement of something in the scene, and you can apply here as well. And then you have some extra here like radial blur, and we have some zoom blur, and so on. So you can just apply them and test them without knowing every one of them. You can just go there. You can also add noise, which is something that usually represents things that happen in real cameras. So they have this noise, especially the old cameras. Or you can do basically the opposite, which is remove the noise. So from old pictures, for example. And then you have a series of effects that you usually get with cameras again. These are actually defects, but they can help you to create some simulation of what happens with camera lenses and cameras in general. So you just go there and experiment with those. And then we have some more creative effect like the wave effect or fisheye. And again, this is something that some screen have. There you go, this kind of turning 3D. You can repeat this. And well, it's really fun to play around with these because they're really simple to use. And you can just experiment. Okay, and then we have, well, also, let's say, I want to show you this kaleidoscope, really psychedelic, really nice. And then you have this that's gonna simulate again the camera's vignetting effect, which is gonna darken the corners of the image. The bloom effect is gonna brighten up again the brightest part of the image. Glamour, well, just go there and apply it and see what it does. Dehaze also is gonna try to take some of the original bloom away. And then we have other filters here, but we're gonna see this later on because they can be applied also to vector graphics and other stuff. I'm gonna talk about those later. Well, these were the more related to photography and color correction, color alteration. Now, to show you how we can apply them only in one part, well, it's pretty similar. So if we use the selection, right here, I can, for example, select a, well, I can do this with a rectangle, I can do with the lasso. Let's make it with a polygonal lasso. So, for example, I can select this part here, okay, and I can work only with this part of the image. So I'm gonna go here and close the selection, okay, and now I can basically use any filter here or any adjustment. It's gonna work only on that part of the image. Well, I can be more precise with the selection. This is just to show you, and I can work, well, I can also invert this, so I'm gonna invert selection or Control E, and then we can, for example, apply here a blur or Gaussian blur like that. So I can make the background. And remember also you have feather. This is useful not to have a hard edge right there. Okay, so looking like a broken glass here or something like that. So you can see how many effects can be discovered just by playing around. Now, another way you can do this, I'm gonna show you here with another image, is to use the mask. So let me apply. Okay, need to rotate this. Okay, so let's say that I want to keep the yellow there. We already saw other tools to work with colors, like the brushes again that we saw in the previous video. But in this case, if I want to use the mask, now you can see I have many different masks I can use. I can use the magic mask. So if I click there, it's gonna start to mask out the yellows here. And again, I have tolerance. I can deactivate contiguous, so it's gonna deselect other yellow part of the image. Okay, so now I can click here and convert this to selection and work to selection, or I can extract. And in this other layer here, the background, I'm gonna get rid of the mask. So I have this one here, which is gonna be above the original image. And this one can be now, for example, black and white. And so it's gonna leave me with that background, which is gonna be the original tree. So it's really handy to use masks, and you also can draw masks, do lasso mask, gradient mask. Now, let's say I still want to use this image here, which is gonna be, I wanna duplicate this actually. So I'm gonna duplicate it. Okay, and then on this duplicate, I want to use this layer mask right there, and perhaps use another filter here. Let's use, for example, the blur again to make this really blurred. So you can see it's gonna be blurred more where we have the mask, and then gradually it's gonna fade out. So if I like this effect, I can apply it to the image right there, or I can just, you can see there, deactivate it, or I can use both. So I can use layers to be more free to manage these different effects, and I can also use opacity there if I want to fix it a little bit more. Well, these are just examples. Now, when everything comes together with the selection, the mask, the adjustments, and the various tools, you can see that we have some really powerful functions here, and we can create many solutions and many effects in our projects, in our photographies. And so this is gonna let you manage a lot of really powerful effects, again, for adjustments, for adjust your photo, improve your photos, and do also some really nice alteration with filters. So this is gonna be it for this video. If you enjoyed, please subscribe to the channel. If you want to support us a little bit more, you can join the channel as a supporter. And also please check our other video guides and video courses about graphic design, but also 3D design and so on. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next.